Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our annual State of the State, presented by Bellwether Community Credit Union. I'm Heather McGrail, the interim president and CEO of the Greater Manchester Chamber. And can I just say how wonderful it is to see all of your faces in person together here again at the New Hampshire Institute of Politics. Thank you so much to the NHIOP for hosting us again. I think we can all agree that it feels really good to be here again. The last time for this event was 2019. So a round of applause for that. So we're very happy to be able to bring this important forum to connect Governor Sununu directly with our business community and answer some of the questions that were previously submitted by you all. Before we get started, I wanted to recognize the Chamber Board of Directors who are present here today. If you can just give a quick wave or stand up, board members, so people can recognize you, that would be great. So we have Janella McDonald from Stibler Associates, who is the chair of our Board of Directors. Ovid Lamontagne from Bernstein Schur. Hi, Ovid. Alex Hornton from Cafe Lorraine. There she is. Holly Blanchard from CHAD, and who's also our Manchester Young Professionals Board Liaison. Donna Gamache from Eversource. Where are you, Donna? Kate Skuteris, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. Hi, Kate. Ted Kitchens from Manchester Boston Regional Airport. Ernesto Burden, McLean Communications. Gina Powers from Rath Young Pignatelli, who's our government affairs partner. Hi, Gina. Dr. Joe Favaza from St. Anselm College. Shayna Harelchek from C Science Center. Tom Sullivan from Sullivan Construction, and Scott Spradling from the Spradling Group, who will be our fantastic moderator for today. Thank you so much to our board of director members who really make what we do possible. As long as our sponsors are also behind us, we can bring these programs together. So we want to also take a moment to recognize our sponsors. Of course, our presenting sponsor, Bellwether Community Credit Union. Thank you so much. Our advocate sponsors, Alumni Ventures, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, Hoyle Tanner, New Hampshire Healthy Families, and Rodell Companies. And our supporting sponsor, Pinnacle Mortgage Corporation. Our media partner is the Spradling Group, and venue partner, the New Hampshire Institute of Politics, where we are all enjoying the venue today. Now I'd like to introduce Bill Zefferson, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Lending Officer of Bellwether Community Credit Union, to say a few words. Bill.
Thank you very much. First off, isn't it so nice to be in public and not have to say, hey, nice forehead? Let me introduce myself. I'm Bill Zefferson. I'm the Chief Lending Officer at Bellwether Community Credit Union. And on behalf of our 35,000 members and our entire team of dedicated professionals, Bellwether is so proud to be able to be the presenting sponsor of today's event. All of our recent events, both local and global, underscore the need for effective information sharing and dialogue to achieve a common understanding. I'd like to thank Governor Sununu for his frequent communications with the citizens of New Hampshire and for taking the time to engage with the Greater Manchester business community this afternoon. At this time, I'd also like to thank Heather, who is serving as the interim CEO, and the entire chamber staff for their dedication in being the go-to resource for the business community here in the Manchester area. A great deal of work goes into events like this today, and it's greatly appreciated from all of us in the room. As Bellwether Community Credit Union begins its second century of operation, we still have that same focus on helping our members pool their resources to provide opportunities for achieving financial goals and security, helping members buy a home, save for the future, or grow their business. I look forward to hearing more today about New Hampshire's prospects for a bright future. Thank you very much.
Okay, and now the real director of this program, Scott Spradling, is going to join us. I know most of you know Scott, but just in case, he's an Emmy Award-winning former reporter, anchor, and political director for WMUR, and a longtime chamber board member. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the stage over to Scott. Thank you, Scott.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Isn't it great to sort of all be in the same room together? This is really nice. I find my adrenaline level is much higher than it might normally be at middle of the afternoon on a Wednesday. So it's great to see everybody, and thank you. This is a wonderful opportunity to talk shop, if you will. The Manchester Chamber of Commerce is obviously very active in the conversations that affect all businesses, not just for this region, but for the state. So we're honored to have the governor here today to be able to lead a conversation about the challenges, the successes, the work that's still left to be done here in the state of New Hampshire. We are in good shape. We have a lot of good things going for us, but we also have a lot of work to do. So we're honored to have the governor here. Here's how this will roll. I'll introduce this guy over to my right. I'm sure you probably heard of him before. His name is Chris. We'll get him formally out here in just a second. We'll let him spend 15 or so minutes at his leisure to be able to offer some highlights of how he views the state of the state here in New Hampshire. And then I'll sit down in the chairs in front of you, and we'll do some questions that essentially came from our membership, which was culled from Heather and her team over the course of the last couple of weeks or so. So we'll cover a lot of different areas of interest that come directly from the membership. So I'm honored to be able to facilitate those conversations. And if we have a couple minutes, we'll wrap it up at the end and then leave a few moments for handshakes and hellos. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce, he's in his third term as governor of the state of New Hampshire, our state's 82nd governor. Previously to that, he served, I believe it was 3 terms in the Executive Council. So he's spent a lot of time at the State House. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce Governor Chris Sununu.
All right, good afternoon, evening. This is great. Good to see everybody. Is this mic working too? No? I gotta stand here? What's that? This one works too? No, okay, all right, sorry. I'm double mic'd. The Chinese are listening. They are, that's very serious. Look, things are really great, and I really want to appreciate everyone, folks having me over here. It's always great to see. I was like standing over there, and I'm like, this is quite a crowd. I got like Brian Terrell in the back. I got Maureen here. I got, oh my gosh, Ovid. When Ovid's in the room, I get all nervous. I gotta like do a really good job. He'll tell my dad if I don't do good. Funny, my dad gave me this tie. He's like, I got you this great Ukrainian tie. You gotta wear this tie. The guy hasn't given me anything in 20 years. He gives me that. It's a good tie though. It's a good tie. It's what everyone's noticing. Okay, so I'm gonna be fairly quick, only because I really want to get to questions, whether it's Scott or the audience or anything like that. I mean, I love taking questions, sometimes too much. If you've watched my press conferences, I know they can drone on. But in all seriousness, I've never left a press conference. I never walk off the stage, especially in front of the press, if there's another question to be asked, even if it means going a little longer. Because 2 things happen there. Number one, you got to be super transparent about what's happening. You got to be very open and honest about what you're dealing with, whether it's COVID, whether it's the economy, no matter what the issue of the day is. Because that kind of builds public trust, right? People want to know what you're thinking and know that if someone asks you a question, you didn't just try to hightail it out of there. The other big piece is by hearing questions, it really lets me know what's happening out there. It really does. If businesses are asking me questions and there's a common thread or theme, oh, okay, well, maybe this is where we need to kind of pivot our focus. And one thing I always try to tell the legislature and what's going on in the State House is you got to be flexible, which is really hard in government. So my quick 2 cents is, hey, we're doing great, he said as he passed $4.50 at the gas pump coming over here, right? It's weird. It's a really weird time because fundamentally the state is doing incredibly, incredibly well. Economically, the way we handle COVID, I mean, you can really go down the list. And it doesn't mean we don't have problems, we don't have challenges by any means. But we do have not just the resources, but I think we have some of the innovation and the kind of the change in style, the willingness to not just blow up a system, I don't like using that word, but really fundamentally get to the root cause of a problem, and then be willing to get to the root issues of a system and be willing to change those, which typically government doesn't do, right? Typically government works up here. It's really easy to change all the edges of something, right? To get to the root of a hard system, whether you're talking about opioids or mental health, and say, look guys, the way we've been doing it for 40 years is not right. or it's not right anymore, right? It doesn't fit our new dynamic. So we have to be willing to completely uproot that. That ruffles a lot of feathers. There's no doubt about that. And there's a lot of risk in that as well. But if you design the systems right, you bring the stakeholders in, and most importantly, you let those stakeholders, in the case, I'll talk about mental health really quickly as a quick example. We wrote our 10-year mental health plan in the state. We was not the state. We was you, right? Parents, stakeholders, nonprofits. They're the ones that came in over a series of countless public meetings, provided all the input about where the system was failing, where the barriers were, what was working, what wasn't, and that designed our 10-year mental health plan, which we're going to get almost all of it done in about 3 years because we really are on a fast track. People are really taking notice, and COVID really has exacerbated most of the mental health issues of the state, which is, believe it or not, has created an opportunity from a governmental level to say, this is our top priority. We are charging forward, and we are doing some things very differently. We're trying to make investments that we've never made before. We're trying to bring in outside providers. For a while, the state, it's kind of an unspoken thing, but for decades, the state basically didn't want to bring in outside mental health providers. We got good teams here, we'll just do it with our agencies, and we do have good teams here, there's no doubt. But there was specialization and all this expertise that we just were missing out on. Those days are done. We've just broken all that down, and it's kind of like a flood coming in here. And we can do all that, whatever your issue is, we can attack it because of a strong economy. I'm a big believer. You get your economics right, you take care of businesses, you make sure that you break down those regulatory barriers, you cut taxes, more businesses come in, we have revenue growth, all of that. That's what creates the opportunity for government programs or government investments or whatever it might be. And I'm going to do my best to stay out of politics up here. No, that was a joke. No, I'm just kidding. But look, I kept hearing, oh, you can't cut taxes, you can't cut taxes, you're cutting way too many taxes, you're cutting way too many taxes, right? What's the net result? Let's just get to the bottom line. We have tripled the rainy day fund. We have a bigger, 10 times more of a surplus than we ever imagined we could have, and businesses are flooding into New Hampshire left and right. We are the only state now that has a growing population in the entire Northeast. We're the only state where people are actually coming into our state as opposed to a net exodus. And that's the first time it's been like that in a long time. So all of those things are working really well. Now you have what's happening, frankly, nationally and worldwide with fuel and inflation. It's hitting a place like New Hampshire hard right now because of heating. I mean, heating oil right now, anyone fill their tank? $5. $5 to fill your tank in this past week. Okay, if you're filling 250-gallon tank at $5, you just paid $1,000. What does that mean? Maybe you're not going out to dinner, for the next couple months. Maybe you're having a little extra pasta or whatever it is, right? You're cutting back on those everyday things. Not that it's a crisis mode, but people are really having to prioritize where that spending is happening at home. Jobs are good. Wages are, one of the highest, average wages in the country is right here. We are the tax-free suburb of Boston, so we have this huge opportunity. So again, getting all those economics right is really what creates the opportunities, and whatever it might be. And it's not about social engineering and all that kind of stuff. For me, it's just about, making sure that is there a need around veterans? We're attacking it. Is there a need around housing? We're attacking it. Right? Tell me where the need is. Show us where the need is, and we have the opportunity to go after it. CARES Act, was phenomenal. As a lot of you know, we did this really unique thing, about $500 million in our CARES Act money, the only state in the country. It went to businesses and nonprofits. The Self-Employment Fund, again, told us it couldn't be done. We were able to figure it out. We were able to send a lot of that money back to the individual. And all of this hinges on that concept. And then, Scott, you got to interrupt me because I'll go on all day. But thank you. B+. The fundamental difference of New Hampshire, and not just a lot of our surrounding states, but frankly a lot of what you see in the country, and especially nationally, is the government is not here to solve your problems. Absolutely not. My job is to create as many doors of opportunity for you and your family and your kids and your business as possible. And then you decide what door you go through. And I've been talking about that for 6 years, but it works. Believe in the individual, right? The school choice stuff that we passed. We thought, you know what, maybe a couple hundred kids would take advantage. Thousands of families are now taking advantage, and we're not even a year into it. Thousands of families are now saying, wait, I have an option that I didn't know I had. And they're all low and middle income families that just didn't have other options before. And it's not bringing the system to some crumbling halt. No, if anything, it's raising our system up because it's about opportunity and choice. What's right for my kid might not be the best path for your kid. That's okay, right? And by the way, public schools in New Hampshire are phenomenal. I'm the first governor in 25 years to go through the public schools in New Hampshire. That one shocked me. First governor in 20, Steve Merrill was the last governor before me to come up through public schools in New Hampshire. They're phenomenal. We're always ranked one of the best. But there's always 1 or 2%, or 0.5%, whatever it is, where those four walls of that traditional classroom just aren't working for that kid or that family for whatever reason, different learning styles, dyslexia, whatever it might be, right? So you put your money into providing those opportunities, and everything opens up and flexes open. Now, COVID really amplified a lot of these problems, right? Everything from mental health, kids if you had in special ed, right? If you were slipping through the cracks exponentially fast than everybody else. And that's why it was so important to get kids back in the classroom, so important to get eyes on them, so important to get them out socializing and kind of reintegrating. And we've heard all of that before, but the data backs it up 10 times. And we're doing overall, again, we're doing really, really well with this stuff, especially compared to other states. Governors call all the time, how are you doing this, how are you doing that? I get very proud. And it's not just me, right? I'm kind of the guy that kind of has to take the arrows, and I get some of the credit sometimes too. But it's really the teams that are out there. Most of our government programs are run by nonprofits, right? We're just funding nonprofits that are doing great work. Our best CEOs in the state often are running nonprofits. I'm looking at some of them in this room right now. I'm looking at Maureen because we'll talk about Maureen in a second because what she's doing for veterans is pretty incredible. But it really is true, as opposed to you're all going to work for the government and be government employees and the government's going to run everything. We believe in those individuals. We believe in those individual nonprofits. We believe in our individual school districts to make good decisions for themselves. And again, we believe in those families that are going to be able to direct their best path. That's the philosophy that we've been championing, a real change in approach over the past 4 or 5 years, and it's working. It really is. So now that I've told you how great everything is, Scott can come up and ask me questions and tell me how where we do have our problems. But we do have challenges, there's no doubt. But let's just get into it, whatever you want. Great. Oh, okay. Am I going to sit on this side? Okay. All right.
First of all, can you hear us? Oh, I'm hearing, yeah. Say something really interesting.
Again, my dad bought me a tie, and that was a freaking miracle.
Perfect. There we go. All right. Hopefully you could hear that through the mics. So, Governor, thanks again for doing this. I feel like I should probably start by marking sort of a sad moment from the State House. We lost our House Democratic leader, Rennie Cushing, to his battle to cancer. And, I always have found that the State House has traditionally been a place where the partisan fights happen, but everybody largely gets along. You know each other, you know your families, you know what makes one another tick. Your thoughts about the loss of Rennie?
Rennie was incredible. I mean, he really was. We didn't agree on much politically, but the best part about Rennie is he always came in with a smile. On the mental health stuff, we actually really clicked. We really did, and we tried some things, and especially when I had a Democrat legislature in my second term. We really worked together a lot, specifically around the mental health stuff. Didn't get enough of it done at the time. But just being from the Seacoast, as I am, he's loved his community. He was always out there. And he really, not to like overly gush, but he really did epitomize what we're about. Take what's going on in your local community, go to Concord and advocate as hard as you possibly can. You win some, you lose some, but always smile, come back and build coalitions and try to get it done again. He always understood that just because something didn't pass, it gets you upset in the moment, right? But then you're like, well, sometimes these things can take 2 or 3 sessions to actually get something done. And sometimes it's good that you got to go back to the table a couple times to really push it to make sure you get it right. But he understood that more than most, yeah. It'll be tough. We've had a tough, we lost Speaker Dick Hinch, right? In the beginning of COVID, that was a shock. So, look, we have an older, there's no doubt because of the makeup of our legislature. They are older, of course, but anytime you lose any of them, we've lost a couple, and it's been tough, especially during COVID.
Has the partisan environment around the State House changed? Is it harder to get things done in a bipartisan way than it was a few years ago?
Up until tomorrow, and I'll tell you why. Tomorrow's a really amazing day. So, and this is what's really going on. And it's going to sound like I'm making a joke, but I'm really not. The key to bipartisanship in the State House is the cafeteria. It's the tuna sandwiches. And I mean this very sincerely. When everybody kind of had to go to their corner and socially distance, 6 feet apart in Bedford and Manchester, and all the representatives had to eat their lunch on their lap in their little box lunch, and they weren't even technically sitting next to anybody, right? They just came in, they had to sit in their chair, with the mask and the lunch, and take their vote and leave. There was no socialization. There was no walking through the hall. If you notice, some of them are older, so they'll get up and walk around a lot. In the State House, they'll walk the halls. Republicans and Democrats together, and they'll just chat. They'll talk about their kids, whatever. And believe it or not, and then they get to legislation, and they start talking about things like that. Down in the cafeterias where it happens better than anywhere else. They all will sit together. And again, they socialize. But eventually they get to the business of the State House too. And they work out a lot of their differences over a tuna sandwich. And it sounds silly, but it's absolutely true. So not having them in the State House has really caused the polarization. There's no doubt about that. They all come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's the first day back in the State House for the entire legislature. And I asked Elizabeth, who runs the cafeteria down there today, I got a salad. And I said, are you ready for the influx? She said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I said, well, yeah, because business is going to take off. She goes, no, because I just want to see them all, right? Everybody really fundamentally gets along fairly well. They really do. COVID has polarized everybody, not just the State House, but every community and every school and everything. So the further we get away from COVID, I think the better it gets, the more we do this, right? We're sitting shoulder to shoulder at events like this, and the legislature's sitting shoulder to shoulder, sometimes like this, in their seats, and they're sharing a cheeseburger and a delicious salad. It really can make a difference. So I'm very optimistic looking forward.
I like that. That's great. You started by acknowledging and noticing the price at the gas pump and the sticker shock that we're all dealing with. And admittedly, this isn't Washington, but it's on the minds, and it impacts families in their pocketbooks. Yeah. It's impacting businesses in a sudden and shocking way. I think our state's gas tax is what, about 24 cents-ish? 22,
yeah.
So in the 20s?
Yeah.
Is there any conversation or any consideration about suspending that during this time?
No, not really, but there's a different conversation which is similar. So a couple things. You have to remember the gas tax isn't just, I think what folks are looking at is where the dollars go. Our gas tax goes directly to our roads, and we barely have enough to fund our roads. But our surplus is in all the other taxes. And I'm going to get yelled at tomorrow for saying this, but one idea I had was, and I brought it to a couple folks in the legislature, I won't say who, I don't want to put them on the spot because I don't know what's going to happen, but room and meals tax, right? We're booming. And we're coming up to May and June, so it's the kickoff to the tourism season. It's about 8.5%. What if we just suspended that altogether, right, for a couple months, something like that? Because what we're finding is people, it's not just driving to and from work, people aren't going out to eat. Right? People are saying, well, maybe I won't go on that vacation. We'll have the staycation. We'll just go to have a barbecue and not go up to the mountains or whatever it is. So where we can provide tax relief to offset the insanity of inflation nationally, it isn't probably in the gas tax, in the roads, because we don't have a surplus there, but we do have financial opportunity over here. So I'm asking them to take a look at that. So, which I think would be great. I mean, let's give everyone a 10% coupon on, their summer vacations.
You weren't kidding back there. You said you wanted to make some news. So we're off to a flying start.
Crap.
That's okay. That's significant. Mike Summers just texted. He wants to give you a hug.
I get great. I mean, people think I'm joking. I get great ideas in the shower, and great ideas on the way to the gym.
Perfect.
And on the treadmill.
All right.
So we'll on the treadmill much lately.
We'll put a pin in that. That's a significant one. All right. As for the uncertainty, and this is maybe a little unfair, we'll get into some of the questions from membership here in just a second, but as for our international uncertainty with Ukraine, with Russia, with all that's going on, do you foresee this being the beginning of a protracted and long kind of a challenge? Or do you think this is something that's going to be a few months and then we're reeling it back in, the prices are falling, and we're getting back to what we would consider our definition of normal?
No, I think we're in for a long haul here. I think we're in for a long haul at least through the summer. I mean, remember, July is when we're supposed to be seeing high gas prices. It's freaking March, guys.
Right.
You know? So the Ukrainians are putting up a great fight. That's going to be a long and delayed thing. The amazing opportunity we have worldwide is that NATO is uniting, which means that we're not going to take their gas. We're not going to let that come out. I think it's great that the U.S. cut them off. Again, I'm going to do my best not to get political, but let's just talk practical. Will the administration really start getting back to the idea of, look, maybe we need some, not just bash every fossil fuel that comes down the road and understand there's a transition here, and you got to be prepared for something long-term like this. We have the biggest reserves in the world. To not really tap into that and break down some of the regulatory barriers to allow that to happen is going to be frustrating. I don't know if those pressures will come to bear, but those are political things they're going to have to figure out in Washington. They shouldn't be political, by the way. It should just be practical. But no, I think we're in for the long haul here because the Ukrainians aren't going to give up, and they shouldn't give up, obviously. And so we'll see, but anyone's guess. But that's why I think it's going to be tough, and the markets will take a hit and all that.
So. If you're not running for Senate, if you had the bully pulpit to talk directly to Congress and you had their undivided attention, what would you be directing them to try to be doing right now to help all of us through these challenging times? We're just emerging from COVID round 2, I guess, and we're now dealing with this international crisis that's hitting us all in the pocketbook. What would you want them doing?
Specifically on the inflation and the fuel stuff, there are regulatory barriers that have just been put up. Now, oil and gas are a futures market. That's what really drives a lot of the price here, because it's like it's kind of the prospective look of this ain't getting this is not getting any better, so the price has to be here today because of the problems we're going to face down the road. The regulatory barriers that they've put up, they got to just bring them right down, and they put them up right away with the new administration. I don't agree with any of it, but I do get it. That's their philosophy. They won the election. That's where they wanted to go. But and they didn't. No one really foresaw what was happening in Russia. But let's remember, these gas prices were flying high way before the Russia conflict. So this is not just about Russia, right? This is about just the natural inflation. When you flood trillions of dollars into the economy, something's got to give. That isn't magic money, right? And so it's great that when the Fed came out nationally, I hate talking about national issues right now, but when the Fed came out and basically really owned the fact that they wanted to kind of re-socially engineer wages by managing, where the interest rates were, Janet Yellen was very upfront about that at Treasury. I disagree with all of that. I think it's a horrible use of what the Treasury is about, but it had its net effect. Wages are flying high. We have some of the highest wages in the country here, to the point where business profits are going down because they're doing anything they can to hire anybody they can to keep things floating. Eventually, that's going to come to a head. Inflation doesn't go away like we were told. It was only going to be a few months last year. That's not going away. It's going to be long term. So they have to fundamentally say we're going to do something different across party lines. I mean, nothing gets done across party lines. And someday, I'm not a writer. Someday I will write a book, maybe, about the stories I heard from senators trying to convince me why I should run for the U.S. Senate. And I've gotten in a lot of trouble for just talking about it at all. But there is not a sense of priorities like that we have in New Hampshire. And I'm not talking Republican or Democrat. I'm just talking globally in D.C. There's not a sense of urgency, of priorities, of response-driven results. We have to respond to the people to get the results because we were hired to do a job. I've never seen such a large group of people, 100 people, hired to do a job in the U.S. Senate, but they haven't really lived up to any of the standards, any of them. And I've been very blunt about that. So that's the biggest frustration. Then we can get to the real fundamentals. Here's an idea: balance a budget. They act like it's this foreign concept. We do it every 2 years. Almost every state balances their budget but they act like this is this amazing foreign thing that isn't possible and isn't necessary. So things like that can hurt you. Remember, when I started, when you get your economics right, when you support businesses, when you break down regulations, that creates all the rest of the opportunity you need for for your constituents, whether they're at the state or national level. They don't really have that approach. They could, but anyway.
So in this room, with the chamber and in this room, workforce is an obvious statewide challenge. Doesn't seem to matter what sector you're talking about. It's enormous. So I have a few questions that come from our members on this.
Sure.
What links are being made to keep younger people from leaving the state and to attract new young people to continue moving here? You said that we're getting the influx, but what can and should we be doing to be taking care of the younger workers that are the future of the pipeline?
So a couple things, and I'll do my best to be quick because there's a few different paths here. Number one, we're really trying to get kids and businesses to think about workforce back in the 8th and 9th grade. Do not wait for someone we used to say, let's wait till they graduate from four-year college and then we'll try to hire them. That's the dumbest thing. Don't even wait till they graduate high school. You got to go back to the 8th and 9th grade and open up what we're doing in our schools to be very workforce-oriented. It's amazing. We didn't let kids go to the CTEs, the career and technical schools, and really take a part of those programs till their senior year. Stupid. You get them start working in the 8th and 9th grade in things that they like doing, whether it's being a carpenter, whether it's electrician, whether it's computer coding. These aren't jobs. These are careers. So let's get them started early. And the kids I talk to that could take advantage of those programs earlier, they actually go from, I can't stand going to school, to, oh man, I get to go to that class today. I love doing that, right? They get excited because they're being empowered to make a choice for themselves in their school, and that keeps them on a path. And then you have businesses making investments in those schools for the equipment or the teachers, right? Even some businesses are paying their employees to take turns teaching those classes, and then you grab those students. It's a warm handoff as they finally graduate. And they're graduating with skills, with certificates, and you're off and running. I fought for it. Here's an example of something I fought for multiple times, and I keep losing on it with both Republicans and Democrats. But look, I don't believe that all college should be free. That's the worst thing you could possibly do to the post-secondary education world, right? Because basically, if all college is free, Washington is paying for it. If they're paying for it, they're running it. They don't run anything well. But what you can do is help pay down student debt, which we have a lot. So my idea was, if you stay and work in New Hampshire, we'll help pay down your student debt. And we've expanded those programs huge. And again, you're now incentivizing a student to stay and work here because they're coming out of UNH or wherever it is with high debt load. Stay and work here in New Hampshire. We'll help, pay that down. And again, it's making sure their skills are marrying directly into our workforce. Here's another one, and this has been a really hard challenge. You look at the workforce needs of today. If you lined up, how many nurses do we need? How many electricians do we need? How many social workers do we need? And then you look at those ratios compared to the ratio of degrees that we're giving, there's no correlation. We're giving tons of degrees over here when our workforce needs are over there. So I've been trying to get the universities, public and private, community college, to line their emphasis on programming with our workforce needs. And not, the obvious example, that not to pick on all the philosophy majors that I'm sure we have in the room, but look, philosophy majors are great, but I don't need 200 philosophy majors and 20 nursing degrees if I actually need 200 nurses and a couple philosophers on the side to run for the State House or something. I don't know what they're doing. They're volunteering at the nonprofits. So, all the philosophy majors here just got their feelings hurt. My goodness. But the whole point is line them up, right? Line up the needs of the state with that. And then finally, I think what we're doing, again, this whole concept of you have to go to four-year college, that is such an antiquated idea. The last program I will promote, which I'm so proud of, Commissioner Adelblut and I worked on it, is the career schools, which basically says you take your fourth year of high school, and we'll split it into two. Fourth year of high school, anyone know how much that costs? It's about $15,000 on average. Well, what does 1 year of community college cost? About $7,500. So why don't we let that student take his $15,000 that was going to go to the high school, split it into 2 years. He does dual and concurrent enrollment at his local community college, and it doesn't cost him anything because it's just the money that was going to go to his program. It doesn't cost anyone anything, but he goes for that fifth year at no cost to anybody, so he now walks out with an associate's degree from the community college and guaranteed job interviews with the private businesses that we've linked up in that program, right? Leave it to Republicans to get free college for you, right? But that's kind of what the theory is. We're trying to think outside the box instead of that traditional K to 12, and then we'll see what happens. If you're good enough, you go to four-year college, and if you're not, you go into the trades. That type of stigma, and that is such garbage, man. It drives me crazy. But we're getting beyond that. We are, and I think that helps contribute to making sure the kids are prepared and they're excited about what they're doing.
Flipping it, what can business leaders do to perhaps find ways to better partner with colleges and universities to create programs, to create a pipeline, and vice versa?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just on this crowd. Educators need to reach out. I mean, there's always this want to, and yet there seems to be this invisible barrier to a lot of success.
No, the invisible barrier is called a phone call.
Okay.
I won't name them. They're one of the largest employers in the state. 3 years ago, a little before COVID, I'm in the CEO's office. And I said, hey, have you seen the new, it's not that new, it's a few years old, but the Enterprise Institute over in Keene, they're expanding. It's this kind of entrepreneurial manufacturing facility they have over there, and it's growing like crazy. It's wonderful. And I said, they're talking about workforce, and I said, so, have you talked to the new president over there, And they said, no, what's that? And I'm like, man, did it really take the governor to tell you we had this program over there? So it does work both ways. I think that the colleges and the community colleges have to be proactive to reach out to really explain to people exactly the opportunities that they're creating. But businesses just have to pick up the phone. Pick up the phone to your 3 or 4 local community colleges and the 2 or 3 universities that might be near you. Really to have somebody dig in and find out what the specialization in your area is, and then go and partner with them. Have employees actually teach the class, become associate professors, whatever it is. Bring the students over for internships because it's close and it's local and it's easy to actually work with them. You set those roots, and those students will be with you for life. I mean, it really does work that way. But it's a phone call away. Now, I think everyone has a responsibility of making those calls and making those connections, and I think they're working better than they have before. But sometimes it's just as simple as picking up the phone.
We're almost 2 years to the day when the lockdown began on the original COVID crisis.
Sorry.
2 years later, how are we doing?
Yeah.
And what do you foresee coming for the rest of 2022?
In terms of COVID?
Yeah.
Man, we're crushing it. I mean, I think that the team handled it incredibly well. I was so blessed. I mean, Dr. Chan, Commissioner Shibonet, the team at Public Health, not because we just did our own thing and we were better than everyone else. It wasn't about that. It was about first being super transparent and really looking at data, saying, look, here's the data trends we're seeing. Here's exactly why we're making the decisions we're making. And in doing all that, I think the people of the state, whether you agreed or not, at least understood where we were going and were responsive to it. And so at the end of the day, why was the state successful? And I'm not just saying this, because 1.4 million people were on board for the most part, maybe 1.35 million. We're really on board with what was going on, where we needed to go. Maybe you wanted the vaccine, maybe you didn't, but at least you understood at least the severity of the issue. It wasn't, look, you go walk into a hospital. You couldn't walk into the hospitals because they were getting so overloaded. That was real, that was tangible. This isn't some government conspiracy here. Our hospitals were just, building floors of ICUs on the fly. So the reality of that, we tried to make very clear with good communication. We were very transparent. I think that built public trust, and in return, I think the people responded very, very well. So when we said, look, the vaccine is important, the boosters are really important. We're going to take all these measures for the winter surge, very different approach, but we're going to take all these measures for the 21-22 winter surge, and within a month, we had the lowest hospitalization rate in the country because we created that flexibility early on, and we had a team that understood early planning. So I think we just keep that philosophy. That is COVID gone? No. I hope so, and I hope we're on the way out. But I can tell you this summer, we're going to spend a lot of time preparing for next year's surge in the winter. If it doesn't come, great, awesome, right? But we're going to be prepared, and we're going to have tests. We're going to have vaccination sites to be able to open on a fly. Are we going to all need a booster next year? Not sure. Is this antiviral that's going to come out going to be as effective as they say it is? If it is, that is going to take a lot of pressure off of our system, right? Because if you get COVID, you test, you get it's a test and take. You have COVID, here's your prescription for the antiviral. Take 5 days of it. It's going to make a world of difference and make sure you don't go to the hospital. The internal surge plans that we kind of redesigned and redeveloped with each of the individual hospitals, I think those are pretty amazing, what they were able to do internally. And the flexibilities that we tried to do, like, okay, we're going to do these 10 things to provide a hospital flexibility. Only 7 of them worked. Okay, well now we know not to do those 3 again, and we'll take those funds and resources and pivot somewhere else. So we learned what worked and what didn't really, really well. So we're always just going to be more prepared the next day than we were before. So I think it's still here, but it's nothing that we can't handle.
You mentioned flexibility a couple of times. Remote access was absolutely one of those, how do you find a silver lining in COVID? Maybe a medium gray lining of people finding a way to continue working, staying home to do it. It sort of opened doors for all of us to find not only new ways to get things done, but a different kind of outlook on the work-life balance. Do you see that being a more permanent piece of our economy at this point now?
I think so, right? I mean, I'm looking at you guys. What do you think? I mean, everyone has their own opinion on remote work. In some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't. In some cases it's gray, right? It's hard to maintain certain efficiencies. It's hard to be a nurse and be remote, right? There's some jobs you can't. Now we have telemedicine too, so let's not forget that. So maybe there's an opportunity there. So I think each industry has really challenged themselves to see how this can work and how it can't. I think every industry is trying to provide the flexibility. I think when people are re-entering the workforce with such a high need, I think there's a lot of, so can I work from home? Can I work from home at least 2 or 3 days a week? And employers, whether they want to or not, are having to capitulate to that. Some are fine doing it, but they really are having to capitulate. People ask, not to take this in a different direction, but people are asking a lot, where's our workforce, right? And I can tell you exactly kind of where they are. But what a lot of folks don't know is a lot of our students, especially our young people, they are working. They're working from home, but they're not working for us. Google, Facebook, Amazon, these companies are hiring tens of thousands of people all across the country. They're here in New Hampshire working, but they ain't working for our businesses. They're working essentially permanently remote for guys out in California. So that's a huge change in dynamic too. These monster companies that actually thrive on remote work because it's coding, it's whatever it is, it's product placement. A lot of these guys these men and women can do that from home easier. And so we don't see them coming back to the restaurant or see them coming back into the workforce because they've been reskilled and they're taking a job. And it's like, well, why don't we have restaurant workers anywhere? Well, they're working, but they're just not working for us. So that's a change in dynamic. That ain't getting any better. This next generation, is anyone under 30 here? Well, okay, that's a chamber problem right there. Come on, guys. We got to get a younger generation going. So, but the next 2 generations, without a doubt, and probably forever, are having less kids later in life. So it's going to affect our schools, it's going to affect our property taxes, it's going to massively affect our workforce. And it's going to be a little bit of a me versus the other states in the Northeast. If you want to be in the Northeast, I want to make sure you want to be here. Yeah. And so getting that younger workforce is going to be really tough. We want younger families flooding into the state. Remember the days of, we don't want young families in our town because they cost too much. Oh my God, is that like 1995 thinking? And that's the challenge with housing, right? Yeah. Housing is the biggest challenge the state's facing. We're trying a lot of different innovative things there, but we have to change our mindset to tackle that. It can't be that old school mindset of, we have too many families in here and they cost too much. You want families in those towns because with the families comes the businesses. Businesses are going to go where the workforce is. And with the businesses come, better tax base and all that kind of stuff and a more vibrant local economy. So, we're still, it shocks me how many people still have that old school mindset. They think multifamily housing is just for Manchester, or just for Lebanon, or just for Portsmouth. Good luck with Portsmouth, or just for Concord. It's not. It's for Bow, and it's for Hooksett, and it's for, it doesn't have to be a 200-unit multifamily place in downtown Bedford. I get that. It doesn't have to have 200 units, but everyone has to do their share, and you can do it in really cool ways, and that's a lot of what this new funding initiative I have going. But you can do it in really cool ways, mix in with the aesthetics of the town, bring in these working families that just want good jobs, and there's plenty of good jobs to be had, and you're going to fill them. I mean, the economics work on day one, but it's a change in mindset that we really have to challenge ourselves on the local level to encourage those young families to keep those businesses thriving because more people are working remotely and there's less of them to do it.
So you led me right to that next topic about housing. We got a number of folks that were emailing in from the chamber perspective about your new affordable housing fund. 100 million, is that right? Tell me.
I hope so. I'll bring it to the fiscal committee in April. Okay. All the details are being worked out now. Bring it to the fiscal committee. Everyone seems very positive on the idea. Will they agree to the full amount and how I want to spend it? I don't know. It's a partnership, but I think we'll get there.
What do you hope will come from it? I mean, obviously more affordable houses,
more housing,
but
more housing, more workforce housing.
What does
it actually look like? Yeah, $100 million is what I proposed. The first $60 million really helps the developers. Excuse me. Some last dollars in, especially smaller developers, local developers in the north part of the state. It isn't regionally specific, but that's really where the key need is. You have a lot of big-time developers down here. Money is not so much the issue, right? They're going to do a project en masse or they're going to do a project here. Whoever permits it faster and where they get the better ROI, it's going to be okay. But in some of the smaller communities up north where you want these young families, businesses are moving in, but they don't have the workforce. That's really where we're going to use $60 million to help do some match funding on the actual bricks and mortar of the building. Okay. $60 million to help build. And we've never done anything like that before. About $30 million is basically a prize. I think of it that way. Whoever builds the multi-unit units, whoever approves the multi-unit family housing the fastest wins $10,000 per unit, and that's what it is. Whoever starts, if you can get your application to approval within 6 months, I'm going to hand the town $10,000 per unit to offset their costs, but I'm going to incentivize them to move fast. See, the challenge with us is speed. We typically take twice as long to permit one of these projects. There's money out there. But if you tell a developer that project will take you 18 months to permit in New Hampshire, but it'll only take you 9 months to permit in Mass, they're going to Massachusetts to invest their dollars. So we're trying to offset that and incentivize our local control is great. Stop. I'll stop saying what I want to say after that. It is great. It is. And it's incredibly powerful, but it can be very frustrating. And it's most frustrating to developers and communities who want to make these investments and do them right. It doesn't mean you fast track everything and not put good guidelines and make sure it's being done in the confines of your town of what you want for the town. But there is a path there, and we just want to incentivize the speed. There's a fund there to train towns, millions of dollars, so towns can be taught, if you will, upgraded and updated on the different types of multifamily housing that's available, the different types of zoning strategies that are out there. And then we actually have money out there. They can use those same dollars to bring in consultants to update their zoning and planning documents, some of which haven't been updated in 50 years. And then finally, this is a unique one. I created a demolition fund. And this is for specifically a lot of the older smaller mill towns up north. They've got these old dilapidated housing, sometimes from the 40s and 50s, full of asbestos. Surrounded by some nice houses over here and nice projects over here. They want to demolish them all and put in multifamily, but they literally can't afford to demolish them. because there's too much asbestos or whatever it is. It's actually lowering property values. So I'm creating a fund so some of these small towns can basically take a chunk of money and clear out the garbage, if you will. They're not being used. It's old, dilapidated stuff. Property values go up, the aesthetics of the town go up, the lots get opened up, and now you can move multifamily in there in a nice, more modern, sustainable way with better materials. So we're trying to attack it from all the different barriers that we saw for where housing doesn't work. And we also have a big regulatory reform bill on housing, HB 400, which will pass. And again, that will just help streamline and incentivize a lot of this stuff. And you don't want to stop local control, I get it. You want to educate them and get them to where we need to be successful for the 21st century.
Governor, I got a question from a small business owner who was basically saying that the pandemic impact from the last couple of years continues to cause business disruptions, supply chain issues, a reduction in sales. There still are some out there who are struggling to recover and catch their stride again. And their question is, do you foresee any more CARES Act related funding coming through the New Hampshire pipeline?
No.
Will there be any more coming from Washington?
No. Look, let me be really blunt. I'm super proud of how we spent the CARES Act money in New Hampshire because we, like I said earlier, we really invested in businesses. About $500 million of it went to businesses so they could retain their employees. And in doing that, I mean, here's an amazing stat, if you haven't heard me say it before. We're the only state in the country, the only state where in 2020, the disastrous year of 2020, less businesses closed than in 2019. We put so much money into businesses in the economy, we actually propped businesses up that otherwise probably would have failed on their own, right? Because we just kept pumping the money back into the economy. And then the PPP programs came in on the federal side. Those were great. Some other loan programs on the federal side came in. But we really propped things up really strong, knowing that the economic return of 21, we didn't want to be figuring that out. We wanted people to have that strength, not have to rebuild their businesses or rehire their employees. So by investing that cash where we needed to, specifically small businesses, there were some larger companies that wanted to participate, but we had to focus on what I called the Main Street Relief Fund, Main Street USA, $20 million and less, so kind of the mid and small size business, and it worked really well. We have a stronger economy with more jobs and more money in the economy than ever before. I'm not saying certain businesses aren't struggling and don't have supply chain issues. I get it. But the idea that we're just going to pump more money into the economy to help the economy that is already really, really strong, that's just probably not going to happen. There are other real bigger needs out there. Also, the money coming from the government is one time, and the opportunity right now is to invest in the one-time infrastructure, right? And that's why inflation is so high. Okay. So one reason overall the national economy is going to stay strong, because a large chunk of these trillions of dollars they're spending is in the roads and the bridges and the buildings. It's very job related. Materials will be very expensive for us, but boy, the government is going to spend so much of this money on building, and that is very job related, and overall the economy will stay high, but inflation will stay very high as well, unfortunately. But unfortunately, I know some businesses are still struggling out there, especially on the supply chain stuff, but supply chain isn't a problem of dollars. People have the dollars, they're just not getting their actual product in the door. Will the SBA expand some of their programs to create longer bridge loans or things like that? They could, I suppose, but I don't think there's any more, here's a grant, to just keep your business running. I think we're past that.
So a lot of federal dollars for infrastructure. A lot of chamber members are interested in rail here in Manchester. What's your thought?
Yeah, look, the study is going to be done at the end of the year. There's no money in the infrastructure bill for this. That's like this misconception. There's a couple vague grants that we could go after because it will cost, especially before inflation, it costs about $350 million. After inflation, you're talking about $500 to $600 million. So we ain't paying for that. I mean, if the feds want to pay for it, great, but you are never going to convince the people of the state to spend $500 million on a train that really just affects this one corridor. And let's understand what it does. It brings people to work to Boston, right? When more people, if you work in Boston but you live in New Hampshire, the chances are you're working remotely anyways. So the need isn't there like it was before because less people are already on the roads. The idea was going to take 0.5% of people off the roads. Look, we're already down 10%. Still, we maintain about a 10% drop in people on our roads today. So we've already kind of achieved that, COVID kind of achieved that goal for us. So I'm not against the train by any means. Tell me how we're going to pay for it. I mean, it's really, really expensive. Also, who's going to run the train? MBTA. Let me be really blunt. Those bankrupt, crooked bastards, I wouldn't trust them in New Hampshire for 2 seconds.
Tell us what you really think.
Yeah, you want to make news? No, I wouldn't. I don't get that organization. It is Massachusetts bureaucracy, cronyism, bureaucracy, whatever word you want to throw on it at its worst. They are billions and billions in debt. There's no, so they're going to be our operator? I don't think so. Because it wouldn't necessarily be, it's not necessarily going to be an Amtrak line like you have over in Exeter. And the cost to keep it running every year would be about $13 million right now, just to keep it subsidized, to keep it running every year. So where does that money come from? That's probably manageable because we're doing so well economically, but building the dang thing with inflation costs and steel and all that, I don't know. So I think it's good that we're going to get the study done.
We'll see the study.
We're going to figure out. I think we did a lot of good public hearings. We know where it should be. I think we're going to figure out. We're going to have a good sense of what the economics are. And then if we can find a way for the federal government to help, build it, I think that'd be fine fundamentally. But you can't expect New Hampshire to put up $500 million on a train that is going to take maybe a couple thousand people a day. Yeah. So the other 1.398 million people aren't riding it, it's a tough thing to ask them to foot the bill for. So you got to find a way to do it.
Okay. Mental health. You made some news in your State of the State just a couple weeks ago. Will you please talk about this new program that you're working on with Maureen and Easter Seals?
Oh, with veterans?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Super cool. Okay, very exciting. So, look, I think we do a great job with veterans in the state. We have great VSOs, our veteran service officers and organizations. We have great nonprofits. This really cool thing has happened in the past couple of years where not just Swim with a Mission, but there's a couple nonprofits out there that have really tried to coalesce all the different nonprofits. And we have like a couple hundred of them in the state that focus on veterans. There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of duplicity. And we're not trying to get rid of any and get or anything like that, but start bringing them together to start talking and working with one another. The folks that are doing equine therapy with veterans now understand and have met the folks that are doing real mental health stuff with veterans. The federal VA, which is still a bit in a silo, I was down talking to them just last week about this project, and I said, look, we're going to make a huge investment for veterans. You need to be part of it. You need to be here. You need to be at least on campus or have a bridge. It isn't your programs and our programs. That's the old way of thinking. So the Easter Seals has an amazing opportunity in a property that is available. It's up in Franklin. It's a beautiful campus. It's got the buildings. They need to be renovated. It's probably $20+ million of renovations there. But it's really the idea is to bring a campus not just for homeless veterans or veterans that have mental health issues or job transition for active military into being a veteran or the equine therapy. It's not just about that. The last piece is it brings active military. So many of these veterans groups very rarely bring active military into the mix. But that's such an important piece because veterans want to work with veterans. Veterans want to work with folks that are in the military, that have walked the walk. And so to bring them and their families as part of this. You're a service member in a service family in New Hampshire. Your spouse is overseas on deployment. You hit some financial struggles. This is where you go, right? We can find something for you. It's kind of a center of excellence. I hate overusing that term, but really a center of excellence where we're training people. Mental health services for veterans, it's very unique, right? Opioid addiction with veterans is actually very unique. They deal with it differently. And how you treat it is very different as well. The issues of PTSD, the issues of homelessness. Veterans, because of everything they've gone through, they just need a different level of care and a different specialization of care. Let's train to that and bring active military to be part of it. So I think there's a lot of ideas on the table. It's a $25 million project. I think that's peanuts compared to the return you're going to get on that investment. And I think we brought that. Did we bring that to the fiscal committee? I'm looking at you, Maureen. I think we did. Yeah, the 18th is coming. So in a couple weeks that'll go to fiscal. Hopefully it'll go right through, and we'll go. We're just going to go on that project. And I really think there's nothing like it anywhere in the Northeast. I don't think we haven't found anything truly like it really in the country, but we definitely know there's nothing like it in the Northeast. And to provide that level of service, all-encompassing wraparound. Yeah. It's similar to the Doorway, and I don't mean to shift too much. When I created the Doorway, which is our system to deal with opioids, addiction, recovery, treatment, prevention, the whole idea was to go to rural areas as well as the inner cities, and have full wraparound services. Recovery-friendly workplaces, transitional housing, treatment, different types of recovery, club models, long-term recovery programs, not just for opioids, but for other things as well. How are you going to deal, for those who don't know, someone who detoxes from alcohol and detoxes from opioids are two totally different things. So you can't have a one-size-fits-all model because it ain't going to work. So you have to have these wraparound services, and our 9 doorways across the state have that wraparound approach, and that's really what we're trying to do here with veterans, a full wraparound campus right on the river in Franklin. It's absolutely beautiful. Franklin's a booming town. It's really made a great economic comeback, and it's just a great place to be. They're welcoming it with open arms, and everyone's excited.
All right,
Should
so
be great.
we only have a couple minutes left, so let me just soft landing, get personal for a minute. So you don't get days off. You have 2 of your 3 kids are teenagers, and we all know how much fun that is. And you've already said that you want to keep this job for a couple more years. How come?
Yeah. Great question. So
Not to put you
I
on the
never
spot.
imagined. I didn't ever really think about. I don't think it term to term or politics. I mean, my campaign, hasn't even really started. I don't think about the politics in terms of. I think about the long-term strategy of the state, but I'll deal with the politics right in front of me. I think a couple things. Fundamentally, if you talked about a 4th term, I traditionally would have said no. But I want to take everyone back to October, November, right? The Senate clearly wasn't for me because I don't have. Let's be really plain and say I don't have that skill set. Meaning they couldn't handle me, right? I'm a CEO. They're a defunct board of directors. We get things done. We get to design. We get to innovate. Being a governor is such a fundamentally different job, and I love it, in case you can't tell. A lot of challenges, a lot of criticism, a lot of tough things, especially with my family. It's very hard, very, very hard on my family. The protesters, you saw that insanity. I mean, last time I was on a stage in this room, that was the executive council meeting that was shut down because you had these lunatics running around the room screaming and shouting and all of this, and it was like, this is out of control. We're not going to, and it was getting dangerous, so we had to shut it down. And that ended up literally on my doorstep. My 3rd graders out bouncing on the trampoline. Dad, who's the guy at the end of the street with the bullhorn yelling the F word at you? And I had to explain to them what the F word was, and that was the whole thing in itself. But the anger in the country really got tough. But getting back to the main point, I love what I do, but remember, back in the fall, the winter surge was coming. No idea where COVID was really going. We have a lot of money coming into the state in ARP with one-time investment that I think we are on a really good strategy and path in terms of how to spend it. But if you're not careful, that can get out of control and you can start creating big government and long-term liabilities and all of that. So we have a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunity that I don't think are going to, I don't want to say get solved, but I don't think those roots of long-term stability are going to be there with some of these things for another 18 months. And that was my calculus. We have this incredible veterans program. I don't want to say, here's some money, here's a great idea, goodbye and good luck. Good luck with it, guys. I want to see it through. The doorway is going phenomenal. I mean, look, we lost just under 400 people to opioid overdoses last year. But let me tell you something. I tell you why I'm so proud of our system. We're the only state in the country. Remember, we're the tip of the spear? Trump calling us the drug-infested den or whatever that guy. Okay. I said I wasn't going to use his name. I was going to get me angry, but let me tell you, and we were the tip of the spear. There's no doubt about that. We're the only state in the country the last 2 years where drug overdoses, deaths have gone down. The rest of the country has almost doubled their overdose deaths. Ours are down 20% in the last 3 years. The system's working. We've got a long way to go. We've got a lot of work to do. So those roots are just taking hold, and we're starting to see results. Mental health is another one. Huge investments in mental health. We just bought Hampstead Hospital. We're going to make investments in 2 more mental health hospitals. We're bringing private providers in for the first time. It's phenomenal. But that stuff ain't really going to be where I feel comfortable that it's had the right management. And not that I'm the only guy who could do it, but it's kind of our design, our philosophy. You got to see it through, as opposed to saying, hey, I left you with some good ideas. Goodbye and good luck. Call me in Washington. Let me know how it goes. I can't do that. I wasn't going to do that to the state. No way. So, I love it here. I do. I love what I do. I love what we're doing, and I love the opportunities that we have and the challenges. Is COVID coming back next winter? I mean, I'm not doing the political thing, vote for me in November, but I got to tell you, one of the fears that we're all going to have is from either state administrations or local, the unknown of whether COVID comes back in the winter. It'll be great if it doesn't, because I think that'll put all of our minds at ease that we're truly past this. But until we get past a potential winter surge next year, I'm not really sure we're out of this by any means. So we got to, again, you just got to see it all the way through. And I don't feel quite there yet.
Okay.
I still got more work to do.
Yes, more work to do.
But let me tell you, I can't wait I'm going to send all of you resumes pretty soon. I can't wait. I don't want to be a career politician. That is never my goal. I love being in the private sector. I love being a CEO. I love being a manager. And I really want to get back to it. And my family wants me to get back to it. being so patient right now. And it's been really, really hard on them. So we'll see what happens.
Well, our best to you and your family, and Governor, thank you so much for your time
Oh,
today.
thanks.
We appreciate
That's
it.
great. Thank you, brother.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
So thank you, all of you, for coming out. It's wonderful, again, to sort of be in the same room together. A special thanks to our friends, our presenting sponsor at Bellwether Community Credit Union, our advocate sponsors, Alumni Ventures, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, Holt Tanner, New Hampshire Healthy Families, and Riddell Companies, and our supporting sponsor, which is the Pinnacle Mortgage Corporation. So thank you. Don't forget, in 2 weeks, we're doing State of the City with Mayor Craig. Same place, same bat time. So we will see you in a couple of weeks. Governor, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Have
buddy.
a great one.
Good to see you.
Thanks a lot, bud. Whoop, did
Hope
a
that was
great job.
okay. Thank you. Sorry, my answers were too long and you don't need me to like step on your questions.